This episode of the Wedding Film School Show is brought to you by MusicBed, the best music licensing platform for wedding filmmakers. Head over to themusicbed.com and enter our code WFS on checkout to get a free month on your annual wedding subscription. Now, on to the show. The receptiveness of a camera company, it matters. I think it matters to a lot of people out there, especially wedding filmmakers who are using this thing week in, week out, like it's their baby.
I don't know of another camera manufacturer that provides that direct a pipeline to our users where we're literally soliciting feedback, answering your questions, demonstrating features for people from the manufacturer's perspective as they're asking them of us. Ultimately, it helps us build better products.
I have never thought this camera's too heavy, but I have often thought this lens is too heavy.
I would agree. And I think grip design comes into play there as well. Sometimes the marketing team ultimately wins and they go a little smaller than people want and then hear about it. So I think reliability really means something when you're tearing down at the end of the evening and, you know, the venue's trying to kick you out of there and you're just shoving stuff into the bag.
That never happens. That never happens.
We are very organized people, Matthew. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wedding Film School Show. My name is Jared Haskell and we have another awesome episode for you guys today. But before we hop into it, I'm here with my business partner and co-host Jason McCutcheon. What's up, dude?
Jared, what is one thing that you want to do better at weddings this year?
Do better at weddings.
Like with your camera specifically.
Well, I would love to get my subjects in focus more this year, which
more usable shots that aren't out of focus.
More
Very high
usable
bar.
shots that aren't out of focus using our cameras. So which actually brings us into our guest today, and we have Matthew Frazer from LUMIX, the business development management, and Matthew, we just met in Japan a couple months ago. They were nice enough to host a reveal of the new LUMIX S5 II, and we were honored to be a part of that unveiling and got to meet the team. And so we thought it would be great to have Matthew on today and not only talk to the camera, but also talk about just LUMIX in general and camera companies and the direction that we're going here.
We wanted to do a little different because we want to always give filmmakers insight into the people that are making their tools, right? And so we're not pushing one tool or another tool, but I think good tools. Yeah. And we just did a survey in our group, and it was like 20% of filmmakers, which at one point, like I don't know if I was surprised by it because it's a very vocal group of people that are big fans, but LUMIX has always had like a really strong presence in the wedding filmmaking community. And so I guess I thought it'd be awesome to hear directly from them. If you're listening, we're not getting anything financially from this and nothing like that. We're just interested and we're curious, and we like to give people an opportunity to look behind the curtain a little bit. So without further ado, how you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. So first of all, it was actually a pleasure having both of you out to Japan. I mean, the truth is we've been kind of quietly lurking with your channel for the past few years. So we've been fans from afar, and we've been waiting for that opportunity to be able to engage in a more meaningful way with your viewing audience. So we figured this camera was the perfect opportunity for us to sort of to come out and make ourselves more visible to your community. So again, thank you guys for coming out, and honestly, just thanks for your support and everything that you guys have been doing. Yeah,
we love it. And, I always tell people, there's a classic knock on YouTubers, like, don't listen to anyone who got a camera for free. Don't listen to it. And I'm always like, you think we can afford all these cameras? Like that being said, we don't talk about stuff that if people knew the amount of things that people wanted us to make, where I'm like, that thing sucks, I'm not making that. I always will be like, I am not reviewing that. It's a bad product. I don't stand behind it. And I always tell, we were talking Matt, and I'm like, hey, I'm not originally a LUMIX shooter either. I'm just telling you from perspective of unbiased camera person. We had a great time in Tokyo, by the way, and we learned a lot about your culture as a company, right? And I've been learning, like, we've had interactions with like LUMIX ambassadors for years, and I know ambassadors for all their companies, and this always like stuck out to me, like how good you treat your ambassadors, Matt.
Well, I think we have some really high quality ambassadors,
Mm-hmm.
between Matthew Sutherland and obviously Jordan, and Charles and Jennifer Maring. They're all three highly skilled wedding videographers, all of them focusing on very different sort of levels of videography when it comes to wedding work. But the truth is that we look at the wedding videography community as sort of a test bed for how much abuse our cameras can take. And so, we assume that if we can survive the average, season to 5 seasons of wedding videography work and wedding photography, then we know we're making a pretty good product. And so that's really what we look at is what does this market want? We think one of the biggest reasons people gravitate to our brand or are so loyal to us is just the amount of reliability they can get from our cameras. Every camera company is going to say that they're extremely reliable, and in general, they will be very reliable tools. But when you get to markets where it's going to get hotter, our cameras tend to pass that test better than others. And I think that's a big reason why people like our product. I also think that a lot of people who are doing wedding work really had at one point or are currently aspiring to be cinematographers, right? I think at the end of the day, they'd like to be doing, either commercials or they'd like to be doing, narratives or documentary work as well. And we focus on giving tools that, people who are in production demand out of a cinema camera. And so,
Well, a lot of them actually do both at the same time, right?
Right.
And so, like, what is it like? The last S5 was the first mirrorless that was Netflix approved, right? Or was that?
Yeah. So our S1H
S1H
got Netflix certified as a primary camera, which that's just a fancy way of saying if Netflix is paying the bill, you can use the Panasonic S1H as your primary camera. Or now it's the BS1H and the BGH1, which are 2-box cameras as well.
Very cool cameras, by the way. Honestly, I'm always like, I'm an actual camera nerd, and I always am like, I wish I could use that camera for weddings. They're just like, it's not practical, but I always I'm always like a little jealous when people get to kit out that kind of stuff. So wedding filmmaking, like you mentioned, like brutality, right? Just pure brutality on cameras. Like, what does a camera company do? Maybe even specifically, what does LUMIX do? Like when they're trying to like test these things, like how do you like when you're in R&D, you're like, okay, so we have to do this to make it like tough. We have to do this to make it like, what are the things you're kind of trying to do when you're designing a camera to keep in mind a use case like wedding filmmaking?
So I think on one end, we have to worry about the camera surviving during the production of your piece. On the other end, we just have to make sure it's basically durable. So if a tripod gets knocked over, there's a decent chance that it's going to survive that being knocked over occurrence. So on the production side during filming, the keys for us are just having high quality magnesium alloy chassis in any of our cameras that we target at professional filmmaking or professional video production. So always full magnesium alloy chassis. We have a very different way of doing stabilization than our competitors do. And, some people really like the look of our stabilization. It does come at a cost. There's a significant amount of weight that's in our image stabilization. You've had the S5 too, you can feel that thing shaking around in that chassis.
Oh yeah.
And it's because it's, coupled to a brass system in order to get the heat away from the sensor. So we refuse to compromise our principles on thermal management in order to get the camera weight or camera body size down. We'd rather look for more elegant approaches to make it work if we have to get the camera downsized, which is why we do fans in a lot of the cameras. The S5 II is a fan-equipped camera now. So those are the things that we really focus on, is making sure the camera is durable and then making sure it's weather resistant. So you're not going to have to worry about rain or sleet or minor occurrences of heavy rain. I think it's also important to note that all of our lenses, especially on the S series, GH not always the case, but in the S series, all the lenses are weather sealed. So even that kit lens 20 to 60 that we give you is weather sealed. So these are sort of just core principles on making sure that the camera operates effectively and is properly cooled and won't have to worry so much about, rain occurrences. And then beyond that, magnesium alloy chassis, making sure that we build everything to be rugged so that when you're tearing down at the end of the evening and the venue's trying to kick you out of there and you're just shoving stuff into the bag
that never happens. That never happens.
We are very organized people, Matthew.
Oh yeah. Anyway,
I'm only talking about myself.
Yes,
only the inexperienced people.
Yeah, I can say as someone who regularly destroys a lot of cameras in the past 15 years of doing this, and lenses, I could just tell you we appreciate that.
Yeah, what's interesting is like I'm always like curious like why camera companies think people want smaller and smaller cameras that function worse. Like is there some market demand? Like I'm always like, this camera's too small. This camera's too light. Like that's me personally. Like, am I like a minority here? Or is that like, is there a huge demand for just smaller and smaller and smaller, more and more and more compact, and like sacrificing things like heat management for size? Like it seems to me if they just make the cameras bigger, we can have it all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think market share position would tell you that size has had an impact.
Yes.
Panasonic is not the number one camera in market share, and we're probably the largest and heaviest in the category. Even with an S5 II, we are going to be heavier than a Sony A7 IV. We're going to be heavier than an R6 Mark II. So clearly, the market wants lighter weight cameras or more compact and easier to work with. Our stance is that we're not willing to compromise our basic principles of reliability in order to achieve that more compact form factor. So for us, it's probably a little bit more of a balancing act, trying to make sure that our products meet our principles while still getting to the size. I mean, when you look at the first S series, like the S1 or the S1H, those are big boys. Those are big cameras. They're DSLR sized. And it was all about maintaining really good ergonomics, having all the menu options and function keys that people would want, and providing enough weight to be able to handle the thermal issues that will come up, especially with like burst rates and video.
Well, even like balance, like you're putting a lens on that.
Right.
If you're shooting video and the thing is so front heavy, like I always think like I have never thought this camera's too heavy, but I have often thought this lens is too heavy.
Yeah.
I would agree. And I think grip design comes into play there as well. Yeah. It's crazy how much obsession our engineers have over grip design and how many different variants and how many people's opinions they get on where they end up with the final grip design. Sometimes the marketing team ultimately wins and we go a little smaller than people want and then hear about it. So, 9 times out of 10, it's the engineers who went out and the feedback from our customers.
That's an interesting philosophy. Is like the engineer wins out, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was going to ask, is the S5 II grip a little bigger than the S5 one?
Yes, it is bigger. That's no question about it.
Yeah, I was
sole
like,
purpose for its bigger size was just what you're talking about, ergonomics. It's just easier to hold.
Totally.
Yes. I noticed that, but it's almost indiscernible to your eye, but you feel it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
No question about it. It's definitely bigger.
I think it's really interesting because there's so much overlap between the videographer and then also the photographer, right? A lot of times we're using same cameras. And in the last couple of years, there's maybe been a little bit more differentiation between the two. It's like people maybe making a camera that's maybe a little bit more suited for a photographer versus a videographer. And so for a while, it was kind of like us videographers are just along for the ride of whatever photographers are wanting because they make up such a bigger part of the market. But now I do wonder if people are kind of going back that direction of like making a bigger frame that you can actually get your hands on and it's balanced and it's, kind of geared more towards the filmmaker. I definitely feel like the S5 II, it just feels good in your hands as we're doing, we're doing filmmaking in Japan. That was one thing that we noticed was just feels so much better in my hands than
so this is my question,
other cameras.
Matt, is obviously from a standpoint of like, they do have differently, photographer cares about burst speeds. We don't care about burst speeds. So apart from just exclusive features between like photo features and video features, like do you think filmmakers and photographers have like absolutely competing desires or needs out of a camera? Or do you find that the overlap is pretty significant and you can make a camera that makes everyone happy?
I think you can make something that makes everybody happy. The question becomes, can we do it at a price point that makes everybody happy, right?
Ah.
So I think sometimes photographers, when they look at the feature sets that we add for video, they don't immediately see how those things translate to their photography. So let me give you one example. The S5 II can do, a 6K open gate capture, right? That's the full sensor height and width, and it does that at 30 frames per second. Well, if I don't have a sensor that can read out that fast, I don't have the ability to do burst photography at that rate of speed either. And so I think a lot of times photographers might get frustrated if they're paying for a feature like a 6K open gate because they're not going to ever shoot video. But what they don't see is that we honestly had to do that in order to give them the 30 frame burst capability. And frankly, that video need is what then drives the development in the sensor for those higher burst rates from their camera.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and another example would be like the GH6, which that camera can do burst rates of up to 60 frames per, actually can do up to 75 frames per second for photography. On the video side, it can do 5.9K video at 60 frames per second. It can do 4K video at 120 frames per second, and that's full sensor width, no crop other than the Micro Four Thirds original crop. But what people don't realize is we have something called a high. It's called a we call it the a dynamic range boost function. And what that does is it actually runs the sensor at half the rate, and it effectively sends the video signal out twice, one for the highlights, and it's a real low gain, and one for the shadows, so it's a lot of high gain. And it combines the two into a single exposure, and it does this per frame. So this means that photographers are getting, a 16-bit photo file with crazy dynamic range of a Micro Four Thirds sensor, but we could never have done that without the video need for like 120 frames per second or 60 frames per second. So those things really work together. There's a symbiotic relationship between what the photographer's need is, which is higher dynamic range and faster burst rates, and what the video shooter wants, which is higher dynamic range and higher frame rates for slow-mo and things like that.
Well, it's just like
a
lot of people don't realize, like, there's thermals, and then there's like thermals are related to readout speed. And like they're like, oh, I want that to be 4K 60 full frame. And you're like, okay, well, these are the trade-offs. There's a reason why they have a 12 megapixel on an A7S III. It's like they need to they're reading less pixels. It's very simple.
Yeah, and I think this kind of gets into like why we do like 4K 60 in a Super 35 or APS-C crop versus an uncropped region of the sensor. And for years and years, if you wanted faster readout speeds, you'd have to do a window of the sensor to be able to get those readout speeds. It's still the case on a lot of the Blackmagic product today. If you want 120 frames per second, you're going to window the sensor.
Well, there's a reason Blackmagic doesn't make a full frame sensor. Like there's a reason why people do what they do with their, like, this is the thing I always try to, like, don't get me wrong. It's impressive when you pick up like a full frame camera and it's doing everything and all that junk, but typically you're paying almost twice as much for that camera. And my question is, do you think, like, how does a camera company like make the balance between features and price? Like obviously you're running a business, you have to make a profit on the product you sell. Like at one point do you take a risk where you're like, you know what, maybe if we did this, we could get more market share? Or like is that like a challenging balance between like price and features?
I think it is a challenging balance. I think it's a challenging balance for most companies. I think where we have a slight advantage is that we do support two camera systems with two different sensor sizes. And each of these sensor sizes can do very different things well. So when we design our engine, like the L squared engine, it was really designed around the engine that was put in the GH6. And all the serious development for that engine was done during the development of the GH6. So effectively, the reason we do that is that I can make a Micro Four Thirds sensor that's a quarter the size of a full frame sensor read out much faster. And so it's easy for me to be able to develop like an unstacked, like a non-CMOS, like an unstacked sensor that can read out 120 frames per second in a micro four thirds, shape. It's just easier because it's smaller. And so we can then look at that sensor development, and instead of it being a bunch of R&D that's waiting for a sensor to be ready for it, we can dump that R&D into a GH6 or a GH5, and then that R&D pays for itself in that camera system. And then there's other byproduct, right? Like smaller lenses, lighter weight overall system. But at its core, it's a faster readout speed, which gives us the ability to play faster or to offer these things ahead of a lot of the cameras in the market without compromising resolution. I think Sony took a very big risk with cameras like the A7S and the A7S2 and the A7S3. And, I think they deserve some credit for taking that risk and being successful with it. But Micro Four Thirds allows us to fill that role in a different way where we don't have to compromise resolution in order to get those higher frame rates, and don't have to offer stacked sensors that are going to cause the price point to go way up in the product.
Yeah, now on the practical side, I mean, for a wedding filmmaker to have both options, like you have your full frame sensor if you want to do that for, portrait work and kind of getting like super shallow depth of field, a certain type of look. But then if you want camera coverage, you have your Micro Four Thirds. Maybe it's a little bit more affordable for your person breaking into the industry. But then you still have that great kind of Lumix color and super consistent, output across the board. So I think it's a great system that way. So
yeah, and I've always found it like kind of challenging, like from a utility standpoint, I love the idea of having two very different systems that have shine in different ways. Yeah. I've definitely how do you find, do you find people are often well, I'm going to start with GH6, Micro Four Thirds, GH5, and then I'm going to, over time, work into the L system? Or do you find that most people are always working with both systems concurrently and using them in different ways?
I wish I could tell you that there's one answer to that. I mean, you're going to have people who are Micro Four Thirds diehards.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I'm one of those guys. I don't shoot full frame unless there's a specific reason.
There's so many. It's such a strange thing to me because I come from shooting 5D Mark IIs. That's how I got my start. Full frame, right. Shooting full frame. That to me is filmmaking for no reason, but that's just what I started on. The amount of people I talk to that are and I've honestly been maybe I'm wrong. They're oh, dude, Micro Four Thirds is dope. You need to look at these they're people who like Micro Four Thirds are Micro Four Thirds fans.
Totally.
It's like a thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that there's a certain aesthetic you get from that sensor, and it's just like for you. I mean, if you've shot full frame your whole life, it's really tough going to a Micro Four Thirds sensor and expect to get a certain depth of field at an f2.8 lens, and that's not equivalent to what you're getting in the Micro Four Thirds sensor. And I understand that. I think that there's certain aesthetics that we come to create because it's how we're used to shooting.
Yeah.
I do think that some people move to Micro Four Thirds from full frame because they're trying to downsize the kit or they're trying to make it a little more incognito. So I think there are some people who do keep a Micro Four Thirds kit for different things. I think a guy like Jordan Bunch is a good example of this, right? So Jordan does wedding work, but he also does documentary work. And there's times where you're going to be doing documentary work. You don't want to be carrying around a big, large DSLR. It may be less conspicuous, that you're trying to be less conspicuous. You don't want to stand out. So that smaller, lighter weight body is not going to stand out. You may be in a conflict region where you don't want a camera that's going to look like a theft potential target. So going to a less expensive camera to carry around sometimes makes a lot of sense. We do a lot with documentary filmmakers in the GH line as well because of how compact and lightweight the system is. And then ultimately the lenses can just be very inexpensive. Even at best, even if you're buying third party lenses in a 70 to 200-ish range, you're still going to pay more for that.
Oh, I mean, I'm shooting on Micro Four Thirds lenses right here in the set, so it's what I really like about, and I think other people are doing this even with certain people who do full frame and they also do an APS-C camera, right? Mm-hmm. Having full frame when you don't need full frame is actually a detriment. And I think that's a thinking that people should have is why would I want a camera that can't shoot as much resolution, has a harder time with heat management, is bigger and more expensive just to shoot a wide shot of the ceremony. I would much rather have a 6K image in case I need to punch in that is on a much cheaper camera that I don't need the depth of field. I'm paying for features I don't need. And that's what I like about, like, to me, it seems like the LUMIX philosophy is like, get you all the features you need in the camera that is the best value, that's the most durable.
Well, I think in crop sensor, there's really only two companies that are taking crop sensor pretty seriously. Well, I should say three, because I think Olympus takes crop sensor very seriously. Obviously, it's Micro Four Thirds, and they have some amazing lenses. And I'm a beneficiary of that because they work on our system. I think Fuji takes crop sensor very seriously, and you have a tremendous number of lenses that are optimized specifically for their APS-C sensors. I don't think the other camera companies take their crop sensor offerings very seriously.
Especially not on the lens side.
Yeah.
Right. And so ultimately, while the camera may be very capable, you're really compromising on the lens options that you have, especially when it comes to the wider angles of view. You know, it's easy for you to grab a full frame lens and use that in a telephoto situation. It's when I need a wide angle lens that I'm going to be using for interiors or on a gimbal, you really start compromising the look and the aesthetic just to be able to get that APS-C sensor into the camera. So I just think people, when they're investing, they need to look at that and say, does the company I'm going to invest with have significant support for the mount that I'm going to be working with and the sensor size I'm going to invest in?
And long-term commitment too, right? Like, that's, to me, is what it is. It's like, are they going to keep supporting it?
Yeah, and obviously with us, I hope it comes through that, you know, we love Micro Four Thirds and we're going to continue to support it. I know there's a lot of people who think that Panasonic is moving away from this, and that couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. We really do see these as two different tools that service two different needs. You know, on the box camera side, I'll give you a little background that we're not supposed to share really, but you know, the truth is that
only 20 people like this show, so don't worry.
We sell a lot more Micro Four Thirds box cameras than we do full frame, and it's because the user base who needs that box styled camera, where they need remote control, they need, you know, time code and gen lock, in particular gen lock use, a lot of live event and live production. That Micro Four Thirds camera is everything that they could ever hope for. And its image quality blows away any of the cameras they're usually using for it. And so we see all of these niches as really important to maintain our overall strategy. And so that's where Micro Four Thirds really comes into play. We do recognize the market's moving full frame. We know this. I mean, it's very obvious to everybody. But we think that there's going to be eventually this kind of fragmentation where people are using different tools for different things, and they may not want to be tethered to just a full frame camera system, and they want a more complete crop sensor system to work with it.
Don't you feel, Jared, like in wedding filmmaking, it benefits you to like there's really like multiple styles of shooting happening in the day. It's one of the most unique types of shooting because you have portrait work, which you might want to be more dreamy, right? You have detail work, and then gimbal work.
Yep.
And then straight up just
event coverage,
low light event coverage, and daylight event coverage. Like, you really do benefit from having a range of options and tools.
Yeah. I think it's, you know, LUMIX is one of those systems that is just like, you can get everything you need for a wedding day and kind of have specialty cameras, as opposed to just being like, well, I got to really reach and you know, spend this amount if I want it to all look similar and be on the same you know, color scope. That's hard for a lot of wedding filmmakers because we're really not like, I wouldn't say color correction is our strongest.
We're not
suit.
the most like we're not technical. Like,
yeah.
Like we
are, but
we know a little bit about a lot.
Yeah.
But I think like it was interesting to me when I was out there in Tokyo, Matt. Like I think I was talking to you a little bit about like, you know, we're YouTubers, right? We're camera guys, but we're primarily we're filmmakers. Like I'm primarily an operator. Right. And so all I really think about is, will this feel good? And like something like, do I like how this autofocus disengages? Like when I'm hitting the button and thinking about that versus like all these other YouTubers are like, well, this feature and this set and this and it's interesting is like wedding filmmakers, do you think it's like good or like do you view it as like a hindrance when someone can only take like a narrow view towards a camera, or is that like something that you guys are kind of like, these people are going to care about this, like these people are going to be caring about these specific things, like, because it feels like statistics don't really push the needle as much with wedding filmmakers as maybe feel and all the other creature comforts of filmmaking.
So I guess I look at wedding videography maybe a bit differently. There's no set recipe for how somebody effectively produces the content that they're producing for wedding film. There are people who are highly successful and they're working with just basic camcorders, or they're working with, like large sensor products for the bulk of what they're doing. And that's more of the live event style look, right? And so, I deal with a lot of wedding videographers, and some of this also comes down to, like the race of the person and religious beliefs of those people and the celebrations that they have during their specific weddings. In the Indian community, it's extremely popular to work with a standard video-based camcorder. And sometimes it's just because the music that's being played at those events is so incredibly loud with so much bass that some designs like an S5 II is probably not going to work, because the in-body image stabilization will literally vibrate from the music that's being played. And so they may choose to go with a lens-based stabilization system like what's in our camcorder line, or may work with a GH5S because they don't have in-body stabilization at all. And so it's those kind of differences that I think really put a lot of work on our shoulders to make sure we're fulfilling those things. But the byproduct of it is it gives me products I can sell into other industries. So, we have two camcorders I love. And I think wedding videographers should be looking at, and that's the X2 or the X2000, or even like our X1500 and X20. And the reason I like them so much is that as your coverage cameras, they got long zoom lenses. They can go onto a tripod at the back. In the case of the X2, we offer Vlog in the thing. It's a 10-bit profile, so it matches in post with our regular cameras. And it's just an easy solution for back of the house to get to the front of to get to the bride and the groom.
Well, and depending on what, like you mentioned, like culturally, it is why wedding filmmaking is challenging to, Jared and I talk about this a lot. Like, I feel like wedding filmmakers are a larger part of the market segment who purchase these cameras than the camera companies acknowledge. Like I feel like because we're not making prestige work, like you never go to like a booth for like Canon and see a bunch of wedding films. You see all nature photography, all fashion. And that's every single like marketing campaign for every camera company is fashion, maybe action sports, maybe sports, like lots of nature. I'm like, how many people are buying these things for nature? Like maybe some, of course, but I'm always like, wedding filmmakers might be buying like 15 cameras over the course of like 8 years. This other guy you're trying to sell to might buy one camera. Why are we targeting that guy? Am I missing something there?
Well, but I again, looking at how dynamic the environment is for what you guys do. I mean, I think that COVID really introduced new styles of filmmaking that they hadn't even considered before, like live production and having to actually be able to stream out something so that the family that's not traveling can see this live. And now I think that the wedding videographer is now being asked to also be a live production professional as well. And they're being asked to do like a multi-camera live stream for people. And so a product that can fit into multiple categories and fill all those needs well becomes very valuable to this market. But ultimately, it also helps us with like houses of worship. If I have a product that works well for a live event for a wedding, it's going to work really well for a church. It's also going to work really well for a funeral. And so if we look at these categories and try to make our products work well for all of those things and make it easy enough for a filmmaker to be able to branch out into these other opportunities, I think ultimately it just ends up making them more profitable as a business operator.
Yeah. Jared, like we've talked, we will not be specific, but we've talked about camera companies in the past who like we feel abandoned by. You know, like like when you give them your loyalty, your money, and you're like, you could just actively see that they really don't care about like your business. They're like, well, like they're primarily focused on either a different market segment or like you just actively, they basically just say it without saying it by the choices they make.
Making you buy mounts for all of your lenses that you've acquired over the last 12 years. One camera company, if you know, you know.
Not supporting the lenses after like 4 years of manufacturing them. Like, you know, I feel like it's weird how you have this emotional relationship with a camera company.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like camera companies like my partner. You know, like it's weird. Like I don't know the people at the companies half the time. But I'm like, oh, how dare they do that to me? It's funny how that works.
But I think one of the things that I definitely got a sense for when we were in Japan and kind of learning about the system was just like, Lumix, you guys are really interested in hearing what we have to say. And like, I can't tell you how appreciative us as wedding filmmakers are when it's just like, hey, we just want to hear what you guys think and give us your feedback. And like anytime we were like, what's up with this? Like, what's up with this part of the feature? This is different. You know, we immediately got the help that we needed. Of course, we're there for a Lumix event. But in general, it feels like the receptiveness of a camera company, it matters. I think it matters to a lot of people out there, especially wedding filmmakers who are using this thing week in, week out. Like, it's their baby.
And we'll say this too, like, I want to ask you one more question, Matt, but I'm not a Lumix shooter yet. We have a Lumix cameras that they were nice enough to give us, but like, we're not like telling you like, oh, buy Lumix. Like, we're Lumix people and we're not ambassadors. Like, we're just speaking about our experiences, and we've had experiences with a lot of camera companies, a lot of people who work. We own 3 or 4 different systems in our studio. Like, so we're just speaking from our experience of like knowing a lot and people in the industry and working with a lot of cameras. What is different? And I guess my question that I'm leading into is, okay, you know who the big players are, who are in the wedding filmmaking space. We all know. And honestly, like, if we're all being honest, they're all doing good stuff. Everyone's making great products right now. Like, it's the golden age of cameras in a lot of ways. You know, why should someone who's considering either upgrading or maybe they're just unhappy, why should they consider, what do you think the biggest reasons why someone would want to switch to or upgrade to Lumix?
Well, that's a weighted question. Obviously, it's going to be very biased when it comes out of my mouth.
Of course,
I'm going to have some
of course it's biased.
Strong opinion. So I think if someone's looking at, let's say, the S5 Mark II, let's just speak specifically about that because it's our latest feature set, and it ultimately kind of gives you a preview of what the future probably holds for our brand. When we look at this camera in particular, I think reliability really means something in this segment in particular, because weddings in the United States in particular can get very hot. That thermal management component, I think, is a pretty significant differentiator for us in the segment. You're usually having to go to a much more expensive, larger, more robust cinema camera or, you know, a production camera to be able to get that kind of reliability out of the product. So I think that is a very lesser understood or appreciated feature that we offer.
I mean, I could say from firsthand, Matt, like when we were shooting, where were we in the downtown area in Tokyo?
Is it Ginza?
No, the anime area.
Oh,
Akihabara?
Yeah, Akihabara.
Like, yeah, and a bunch of people are like, hey, we're seeing building warble. And you're like, oh, building warble, that's not good, you know? And then like within like a week, you're like, hey, we fixed it. Like, this is before the even camera came out. The engineers are like re-engineering the camera to work better after just like a couple conversations. And I have worked with other camera companies, and that is kind of unique. I don't know if you guys know that's unique, like, or if you're like, if that's a purposeful difference, but it is the culture. that I've seen.
Well,
It,
I can tell you how ingrained it is in our DNA. So we host a weekly live stream called Lumix Live, and it's on our YouTube channel for the United States.
check it out.
And obviously, it gets viewed from around the world, and it's hosted by Sean Robinson, and it's a live Q&A. So we have no control over what people are going to ask us in that Q&A, and we get a ton of feedback from people. And if you follow us enough through that Lumix Live portal, and you watch enough events go on, you will see members of that community, when we do a firmware update, go, "We told you that real-time LUT function was going to work. That's my feature. I'm the one who told you guys about that." And that guy's probably right. He is probably correct, and he's probably the godfather of real-time LUT. So
as long as he doesn't want royalties, right?
Oh, of course. He did not. He had nothing to do with it back then. But the point is that I don't know of another camera manufacturer that provides that direct a pipeline to our users, where we're literally soliciting feedback, answering your questions, demonstrating features for people from the manufacturer's perspective as they're asking them of us. And I think it's just an incredibly unique platform that no one else is doing. But ultimately, it helps us build better products.
I think so. And I think just transparency is like, I would hope more camera companies, like, this is what I want to say to camera people. Make people pay for doing things you don't like. If you are working with a camera company and they don't treat you well, dump them. And try to find somebody who will be nice to you. And I'm not recommending people switch to Lumix or whatever, but let people know, make them hear it. Go on Twitter. Don't suffer in silence when a camera company is doing something, because I do believe, no matter what I feel about any manufacturer, I do believe every camera manufacturer wants to make a quality product that people like. I don't think anybody's out there being like, moo ha ha ha, I have their money and now we will. I think everybody is knows that their customers need to like the product. And I think a lot of times people just is if there's not even a vocal minority of people who are asking for something, it just doesn't get done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so just let your voice be heard. If you're a Lumix shooter, go to Lumix Live. Let them tell them keep telling them you want 4K 60 full frame.
Yeah.
Keep saying that you want that feature. I'm not sure you're gonna get it. I'm sure someday probably they would like to do it, but they'll probably tell you it'll cost you more, and then they'll say, how much would you be willing to pay for that? But I think
all the wedding filmmakers are like, oh, $1,000. Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, letting people know, feedback is so valuable to whatever camera company you're loyal to.
Totally. It's smart to provide that avenue. Lumix doing that weekly show. That's because it just goes right to consumer, and it cuts down those potential misses of oh, people wouldn't like that? Oh, okay, we won't do that then. I'll make everyone mad when we have to have everyone buy, adapters for all their lenses. I keep bringing up that case. That's the main reason why we switched from Canon back in the day, is because we would have to buy 25 adapters at $300 a pop for each of ours. And it was
I was mainly
they had just asked us if we would not like that, maybe they wouldn't have done it. I don't know.
It's a risk, and it's a calculated risk. Sure. I feel you never, camera companies always are going to have to dump something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they had to.
I don't know. I respect that. I didn't feel it was done in a good listening way. Yeah. I didn't feel they cared about my investment really, that much. But that's just my own personal sour grapes, Matt. So
I can't get into this part. Honestly, we didn't build an SLR that we had to support. So it's not, we're in a different sort of market. Panasonic was the first company into the mirrorless pool. So we're sort of fortunate in that regard.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Groundbreaking. I remember the first time I saw Maddie Hopoya. Hopoya, yeah.
Yeah, I think I
this
pronounced
wedding
it.
film. And I had to show it in our film retreat that year where we got our whole team together. I was like, everyone watch this film, no one talk, and just watch it. And that was my first introduction into the world of Lumix. And I was just I have to get this camera in my hand, try it out, and You know, I think at that point it was just like everyone looked at that
That was
film.
the GH4, right?
I think it was GH4. Yeah, they filmed on. It was one of the first wedding films I'd seen on it, and it was just like blew me away. The color and
The color's so much better now, though,
Oh.
Matt. Like I used to be able to look at films and go like, "That's Lumix."
Yep.
Like it just had a look to it that wasn't my favorite. And
Right.
now like it's so much better.
Matt, tell me. So the S5 II as well as the S1H are both L mount, right?
Correct.
How did that partnership kind of come about with Leica? What was the decision making process there? Because for me, you know, having this camera now, it just opens up a whole new world of lenses that I don't think most wedding filmmakers realize, like
How good Leica
how
is.
good Leica lenses are, and how just
Or how good the Lumix lenses are.
or how good the Lumix lenses are. True. But how did that kind of partnership come about? And have you guys always kind of been associated with each other? What's that story there?
Yeah. So if you go back a long time, like almost 20 years,
Yeah.
Panasonic was looking for a lens partner to help us to build better optics. And ultimately, Leica was looking to get into the digital photography business. And so this kind of preliminarily started around creating differentiations for our camcorder products. But it secretly was always about this Lumix launch of product to be able to have a factory that could build lenses to Leica standards. And so the Yamagata factory ultimately helped us to convince Leica that we could be a good partner in this regard and make high quality optics. And so they view this as a strategic partnership because they need electronics. We needed optical experience or ingenuity to be able to really make photo grade optics. And so that really formed about 20 years ago. And so over the years, we've used Leica in a lot of our products. When it came time to go to the full frame mount, you're ultimately looking at, do you build your own mount and try to fight through the sea of development to create relevance for yourself, or can you mitigate some of your risk and partner with somebody? And the fact is that Leica had already launched the L mount, and we already had a relationship with Leica. So we went to Leica and we said we'd be very interested in making products in our brand using this mount. And I think ultimately that collaboration between Leica and Panasonic opened up a realization that there's not going to be enough optics if it's just the two of us in this place. So Sigma became a third member of the L Mount Alliance. And ultimately now you have access to a very wide range of lenses that we consider to be first, they're not third party, they are first party lenses.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
there's a tremendous amount of communication that has to happen. And Leica has very strict rules about what it is we have to share amongst the three of us to ensure that that customer gets a very similar experience. Now, that doesn't mean that it's an $800 28 to 70 Sigma lens has no compromises in comparison to a 24 to 70, $2,000 Panasonic or $5,000 Sigma lens. There's going to be some motor compromises. A lot of it's going to be in the manual focus of the lens, and how much programming you can do. It's something that's very unique to our lenses is that you can convert them to either be linear or non-linear.
Is that across the whole GH line as well?
Not across the whole GH line. A lot of the GH line can do that, but some of the less expensive lenses don't have that ability. But in the L mount, they all can do it.
That's awesome.
And then that's in the Lumix and that's in the Leica lenses. But even all the Sigma lenses that have been adapted over, if they are a focus by wire lens, some of their really long stuff isn't focused by wire. It's truly mechanical focus, which means it can't be programmed, right? But if it's a focus by wire system from Sigma, it's going to offer that programmability. Now, the difference is that Sigma lens may only be able to do like a 360 degree rotation and a 90 degree. It may not give you all of the options, but we're the same way. Some of our lenses only give you up to 360 degrees. And then, I got 210 and, 180 and going down the list, while some of ours will give you 1,080 degrees of rotation for macro work. It just depends on the lens. But the point is you're going to get those same experiences, and we're going to give you the maximum potential of that lens. Its autofocus motors will be at their absolute best with our system. you don't lose that dual IS where on our cameras, the sensor can stabilize and then the lens can stabilize. So you have the lenses, optical stabilization, you have our in-body stabilization. Those all work together. Now, they won't necessarily do all 5 axes. It's going to be limited to what the motors can do in the lens. But as long as the lens is capable, we're going to give you all of that functionality, which is, I think, very unique in the L-mount alliance. And it ultimately gives us the second largest, inventory of lenses for people in the mirrorless system. Only Sony has more lenses available than Panasonic right now. Wow. And that's saying something, because we were the latest one to the party in full frame mirrorless. We're already
only Sony, because Sony added Tamron too.
Well, yeah, and Sony's got like a 5-6 year head start on us, so it's going to take us a little while to catch up. But the nice thing is we've zoomed right past the other two, so you're really looking at the most complete system that isn't Sony when it comes to a series of lenses that are available that behave as first party lenses.
Just in general, like not just Lumix only, but Jared, don't you feel that the number one thing that actually has, besides like cameras improving, I think everyone talks about that, right? Oh, all the cameras are good. Yeah, that's basically true. Like apart from like the thing where camera bodies are better than ever and everyone, I think that's a well-established discussion that you can get in cheaper and have a better product than ever across all camera manufacturers. I don't think what gets enough play now is how much better the optics are.
Yeah.
Than like when we started filmmaking, like you pretty much were like L glass and everything else was crap. Like plastic, like garbage, and like every manufacturer maybe had like one line of lenses that was good, and then the other line like below it was pretty much garbage, and like if you kicked it like once it would explode. The amount of nifty 50s, Canon nifty 50s I had that just literally just exploded, like like you don't see that anymore. Like we have the whole line of your primes, which I was like, oh, cheap lenses, like I saw the price point. They're really good.
Really good.
They're really good. Like I would shoot with them.
Yeah.
Like I was like, normally I'm a snob about that.
Yeah. If you're a Lumix shooter, there's no reason you shouldn't have the full lineup of Lumix primes. Like they are just beautiful. And in a pinch, if you're just like, I just need a 35, but maybe I don't want to spend, $5,000-$6,000 on a,
well, in the gimbal
like
switchability, they're all the same weight, right?
Yep.
The same.
It's great.
I don't know if they're the same length, but they seem the same.
Yep.
Like I never was like, I don't use primes on a gimbal because of this situation. I'm like, I don't want to deal with it. Well, quite frankly, you can't put your 24-70 on the gimbal we have with the S1H2. And I was like, dang it, what am I going to do? Like, it just didn't fit. Like the eyepiece is too big. So I was like, okay, we got to use these primes. And I was like, this is going to suck. It's going to ruin my, and I was like switching primes all day at this wedding. And I was like, oh, this is actually not that bad. Like
super easy, super fast.
It was fine. And I was like, I was actually kind of blown away. Like just that kind of thoughtfulness. Like we're going to make these so people can put them on a gimbal. Like who does that?
So, so I think it goes a little even deeper than that. And I want to give Nikon a lot of credit in this conversation because I personally think that they don't get enough credit for the lenses.
I would agree actually with
especially with wedding filmmakers.
It's just because of the video thing, but from a standpoint of an image and their glass is incredible actually.
Yeah, it's actually funny because Nikon was my first DSLR camera that I think I shot with. They were the first to like come out with like video features on it, and I don't know. I was one of even before the 5D Mark II. But
let me clarify. The Nikon DSLR lenses is not exactly the best wedding video lenses or the video lenses in general. In the Z mount with what Nikon has done, I think they deserve a lot of credit because they've effectively done a lot of the stuff that we think is important. And so I want to make sure that we call that out because it's not just a Panasonic thing, but when it comes to our design philosophy for lenses, especially in the S series, there are certain things that we hold incredibly important. So if it's a zoom lens, we will, and you put it in manual focus, we will use the autofocus motor to create a parfocal behavior in the lens. And so for the people who are out there who don't know what that is, it just means that you zoom tight on your object, you set focus once, and then if you go wide or tight, it's going to stay in focus. So it's a nice way if you're a camera operator to be able to set focus once on the wedding party during the ceremony, and then you can go wide and tight, and they're just going to always be in focus. You don't have to touch focus again. And so parfocal on all the zooms. It's not technically parfocal. It's not mechanically parfocal. It's electrically parfocal, but it makes your life easier when you're doing event work.
Well, it's just one
definitely.
less. I mean, I'll tell you, that is a thing. If I have one of my less experienced shooters, I always know when they zoomed their camera back and forgot to refocus.
Yep.
Like, that is a major problem. So anyway, that's
and so in this regard, all of the zooms in the S series and most of the ones that carry like the Leica branding for the G series, they do this. The second thing we're really focused on is lens breathing. It's a pet peeve of ours. We don't think you should have to crop the image in post and put a bunch of data for the lens to be able to keep it from breathing. We think it should just not breathe in the first place. And so those are things that we focus on in the cameras. We already talked about the manual settings, the ability to program the rotation for the manual focus. But on the prime side, it was a very conscientious decision to make those primes all the exact same housing. So whether it's the 18 all the way up to the 85, they are the same housing. They are the same length. Everything's basically the same. And they're within a few grams of each other. And so that was by design. But on top of that, they are all color matched. So I can't tell you how many times I've seen other manufacturers where you've used 3 different focal lengths. They all have slightly different look. They all have slightly different color.
Yep.
And you're going to see in the S series, everything is consistent. And it's just because we're worried about video shooters. Photographers, they don't really have to worry about how the color is rendered matching another camera because they're not cutting from camera A to camera B to camera C. You guys are cutting stuff constantly from multiple camera angles. Yeah. So we know the color has to be consistent to maintain your workflow. And then outside of our lenses, on the S5 II, you can actually program color profiles for other lenses. So if you have a lens that leans a little more into red, you can actually dial back the red and then program it for that lens so that that it's going to be a closer match to the rest of your kit. So those are our sensibilities when it comes to lens design. And we think for your community, these are the kind of things that will really appeal to them.
Yeah,
Totally.
and I would agree. I think just ease is actually really important. Is it easy, and does it require me thinking to do? Can I focus on the client? Can I focus on the subject? Can I focus on what I'm doing? And even something like we were talking about real-time LUT, and I was like, I keep saying, well, to me, I'm excited about the way that it's implemented in the my color profiles. Like, as wedding filmmakers, like the ability to shoot your look. If you're shooting 30, 40 events a year, like, yeah, of course there are people who want to spend a ton of time in post, grading and all that stuff. But there are a lot of people who are like, I don't need to. I know I'm making a product. Like, I know exactly what I want it to look like.
Get it right in camera.
I can get it right in camera, and I can get like a finished look in camera, but based with the dynamic range of Vlog. So like you can build the look on any of the profiles you want. So you could put your finishing LUT on top of Vlog, or a finishing LUT on top of like Cinelike V, or your finishing LUT on top of standard if you wanted. However you want to work. However you want, whatever is important to you about shooting, you're able to accomplish it in a very like cut the crap kind of way. Like, I'm going to shoot exactly what I want, and I'm not going to deal with any of the issues. And I think that's pretty sweet. I think like there's even more to be explored there. I just think it's fun when a camera company plays with you. Like, let's play. Let's figure out what works. It's like, we don't know. Like, what are we going to love this? Is this going to be essential to my workflow? Like, to some camera people, this. Like, me and you pick up a camera, we use them very differently.
I love when a camera company can save me money at the end of the day by saving me time. And that's awesome. And I think that's definitely a feature that, if someone grasped onto it, it's like, yeah, man, can I cut down my post-production by 10, 20% and be 10,
I'll tell you this, for us, Matt,
great.
like, I'm not sure we're going to do it. We might try it, right? If we determine that it works, we've saved an hour times 200.
Yeah, we do.
And that's a lot of
that many
savings.
weddings. Yeah.
Like that's 5 weeks of work
Right.
for us to
Well,
not do that.
Right.
Well, and I think there's the artistic side of this too, right? I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people get into this because of the art, and the product is less important than the art that they're putting in sometimes. And one thing that I love is that I love the look of Arri cameras. The Arri product is phenomenal. I have a
beautiful
total
image.
Yeah. And for me to be able to bring in anybody who's ever got a DaVinci Resolve and you look at all of the LUTs that are available for Arri that are in DaVinci Resolve that simulate Kodak stock and Fuji stock and all these different film stocks for, decades and decades of work. My ability to take and apply a transform to log C, that's Arri's log C3 is their log profile, and then apply their LUT to that and then kick that into my camera. And now I'm shooting on effectively the same color as, some of the most famous Kodak stock that shot some of the most famous pictures of all time. And I'm getting that look in camera. That's really saying something to a lot of people. And I think there's a lot of desire to be able to get that kind of look, not for every project, but for special projects. It becomes really interesting to be able to do things like that.
Well, wedding filmmakers, it's about like art, but it's like, how can I focus on creating and not focus on equipment? Like, how can I just, the camera needs to disappear.
Yeah.
And I just want to, I'm focusing on people. Like, you're working directly with another person. You're doing portrait work. You are the director. And so the less I have to think to create, the better. The more I can interact with my couples, the more I can interact with the photographer there and the planners and all that stuff, and just know it's going to be solid. And so I just love that. And I think options is what I like, because some things, like you said, they're not the right tool, or they're not the right workflow. And I think that's awesome. So
Matt, I have one more question before we let you go.
Sure.
Who do you think filmed the best S5 II video on YouTube, and why was it Wedding Film School?
Well, clearly it was Wedding Film School. Obviously, your guys was the best. For your audience in particular, it was the absolute best project.
Of course.
Actually, what I liked is that you guys did multiple projects, which is what I like probably the best, is that you actually shot real world content. You actually put your pseudo money's where your mouth is with this, and actually shot a real paid gig to show that the product can actually work for that. And for me, that was really impressive. There are several other YouTubers who also did some very nice work as well.
Yes.
I don't want to.
I will say this: we're not. We don't know how to do YouTube. We just are like, well, this looks good. Well, this looks good. Like, that's how we think about even this podcast. We're like, well, I like this podcast and I like this video, and like, these other people are so much better at YouTube. They're like talking to me like, what about this? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I just like nice images. Like, that's all I know.
Yeah. And the wedding filmmaker industry, I mean, it's small, but whenever, we buy, it's like we're buying 5, 6, I probably have 50 cameras in the other room right now. So it's like, it's a small industry. It's super niche, but we appreciate, you guys thinking about us, bringing us out there, kind of involving the wedding film kind of community. It was a great experience.
That's how I looked at it, Matt. I was like, this is a big win for wedding filmmakers.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize how underutilized wedding filmmaking is in the camera manufacturing space. Like, they don't reach out to wedding filmmakers in general. Like, it's pretty much like
we're the ugly stepchildren of production world.
yeah. Like we know, we don't sell cameras.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, it was a big thing that's like, oh, okay, my industry is being seen as an industry that's worth investing in, worth listening to. Yeah. So that was big for us, and we're very appreciative of that. And I hope wedding filmmakers are appreciative of that and are willing to at least give LUMIX a shot and check it out. And if they're moving in that direction, Matt, any last second stuff you want to say to the audience?
I would just ask everybody, if you get a chance and you're interested in learning more about LUMIX, to make sure you visit LUMIX Live, get into the community, even if you're not a shooter of our brand. It's a we love to hear feedback from other brands and what you guys like in those products that we should be considering adopting. So I think you can get a real good feel for who we are as a company when you get into those Lumix Lives. So, just go to Google, type in Lumix Live. You'll see a guy with a beard. His name's Sean. He's the guy who usually hosts it. I'll be on there every once in a while.
Sean is awesome.
Yeah, just jump into the community and see what's going on. And obviously, there's a tremendous number of Facebook groups out there that people are a part of. Pick any one of them. We're probably monitoring it, and you'll see Sean or I in there. So you can always hit us up there. We're more than happy to answer questions and hear feedback and criticism. So the cameras won't get better if we don't get that feedback. So by all means, continue to send us the feedback, and we'll keep listening. And if you keep buying them, we'll keep building them. That's kind of how it's going to work.
Cool.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool. Well, thanks, Matt. And everyone watching this at home, guys, make sure that you are giving this episode and the Wedding Film School show a 5-star review wherever you're listening. It really helps us with podcasting algorithm stuff. Also, make sure you're checking out our Facebook group as well. That's where you can connect with the full community, ask questions. We actually just added a buying and selling feature on the Facebook group. So if you are
You can all sell your other cameras and buy your Lumix.
That's the idea. That is the reason, actually, we started doing it. Yeah. But yeah, great community, great place to just get connected with other filmmakers, because as you know, wedding filmmaking it's a pretty lonely profession. Most of us are doing this by ourselves. Also check out our YouTube channel where we do Wedding Film School Live.
2 YouTube channels.
We do have 2 YouTube channels. You can check out this podcast on one, Wedding Film School Show, and then check out Wedding Film School, where we do a lot of our camera reviews and behind the scenes of real live weddings, as well as Wedding Film School Live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we review your films. But again, guys, thank you so much for paying attention and listening or watching this episode of the Wedding Film School Show. We'll see you around next time. You're on the Wedding Film School Show.
See you guys.